Hello there, healthcare humans. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of The Other Human in the Room. So, I'm super excited for this episode. Just as a bit of a backstory, I'm recording this in December 2023, and last week wrapped up my first ever offering of this group course called Interconnected, which was 10 amazing healthcare humans practicing connection with one another. And I put out an invitation to the group of anyone who'd want to come on the podcast and just share a bit about what it was like to be in the group and also just share as much of their story as they want to, because I think um it can be really humanizing to have your story told and witnessed. So I had one incredibly brave healthcare human, Roxanne here, agree to come on. And I'm so excited because honestly, getting to know you, Roxanne, has been a true delight. And I'm so glad to know that there are folks in healthcare like you. And I think we have had many a great conversation. And so I'm just looking forward to this being our first recorded one for, public listening pleasure. So with
Thank you.
that, please introduce yourself.
My name is Roxanne. I'm a family physician in St. John's, Newfoundland, and I've been practicing for over 20 years now. I went to university and graduated from Memorial here in Newfoundland and finished family practice residency in Victoria, BC, and then joined the military for 6 years and did all that fun stuff, and then came back to my hometown, set up a practice, and I've been here now for uh, about 17 or 18 years now. I have a solo practice. I'm a family doctor with a solo practice. So I share an office space with a person, but we actually have our own patients. I'm one of the dying out variety of people who have their own people. I have my own 1,300 people approximately that I'm responsible for, and they see me solely, and I don't have a nurse or anything else. So it's just me. Um, and I'm also a mom. I have a 21-year-old and a 13-year-old boys, sons, lovely young men. I have a wonderful partner who's in the arts, not in science at all. And 5 cats and a dog, and everybody has ADHD in my house.
I love that.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
that's me. And I'm really, really, really thrilled to be here.
I love that. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Um, my first question I usually ask, and definitely feels relevant here, specifically, really just thinking through the logistics of being the one person for 1,300 people, and especially in the past few years, but just in general, how has that been? What's it been like being a human in healthcare in that particular role over this past while?
Um, Daunting is a
Yeah.
word that comes up. Um, things have changed. I mean, COVID changed things, but even before COVID, things were changing. Um, Being in a solo practice, but with other people around, uh, sharing practice, sharing at least location with other doctors. You do feel a little bit of collegiality, and there's a little bit of cross coverage of your folks, other people. But I've actually never been in an arrangement where we covered call. So in Newfoundland, there are it's changing. There are definitely some call groups, but a lot of us um, we just we work, and when we're not around, when we're not available on holiday or weekend, it's emergency rooms and walk-in clinics, which is unfortunate. And I think it would be nice if we had a better system. So I'm used to that. I'm used to feeling the responsibility for all those people. Um, and I mean, I've had some of these families since 2007, and cared for little babies that are now high school students and university students. And and I've seen folks through all kinds of ups and downs, and I feel very close to them. A lot of them I would consider friends, as well as being their doctor. Some of them are almost like family over the years, and I'm in a small town too, where people know each other, so it's really easy to establish those connections. Um, so you feel a lot of responsibility. With when pandemic came, as soon as it came, I remember back in university, 97, epidemiology teachers said that, professors said we were going to have a pandemic right around the year 2020, and it would be influenza or something like that. And, if you look back through centuries, it was always on the 20. So when it came, when it first started, I remember going, hey, here we are. This is it. When I was in the military, we trained for pandemic preparedness. So I was on a team in Halifax that did, and I remember thinking, this is never going to happen. Like, this is crazy. We're going to have the military involved and people with weapons holding, defending immunization clinics and swabs, and we're not going to have people in the hospitals. They're going to go out to a parking lot in Costco to get their nasal swab done. Like, that's crazy. Not going to happen. And but as soon as it started to happen, it was just like we had kind of planned, except it was a different virus. That I think after the SARS viruses in 2003, 4, that was where the military certainly picked up a lot of pandemic. Totally off topic. I'm sorry. So all of that to say that um, adaptability, so the ability to go, okay, what do my patients need? What does my group family need? And then just making it happen. And I have a MOA, an assistant who's fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and she's like me. We just figured out we have to change things. We have to adapt. Take your computer, take your good chair and go home. We're just going to work from home until it's safe to come back. And so we did that, and we never stopped working. I mean, there were some days that there weren't very many phone calls to make, but not very many. And then we stayed in clinic. We were also we had to do our pap test still. We had to do our cancer screenings. We had to see our babies and our prenatals. So there was a lot of stuff we had to do in clinic. So kind of trying to figure out what was best for me and her, our families, and our unique family situations. And then over, I guess, what my community needed, what my patients needed. It was just this continuous, and then as you know, like, guidance was coming out from public health and from the regional health authorities on a constant basis about do this, don't do that. This, it was constant. And I know all of us, even if we had less actual patient care for a period of time, that intellectual piece that we were all doing on a constant basis, listening to the news, trying to get the truth out of it, pull out the rest of it, and then the world changing around us. And we knew, I think all family doctors, at least, we knew that this was going to land in our laps. Like, all the social evolution that happened in 2020, we knew it was going to come back to us, which was fine. I mean, I think that's what we do. But yeah, the world changed a lot. And so I guess being a solo doc, all of that was a joy, and it was a privilege, and it was the reason that I went into medicine. And I remember thinking, certainly when the pandemic first started, just thinking, being a little bit afraid, being a lot afraid. Let's be honest. I think I was terrified. A lot of us were fairly terrified about what this might be. But knowing, well, I had to go to work still. I had to go and do my part for a time such as this. That like, this is my thing. I can't. I didn't have. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. I had no reason to back out and exclude myself from care. So I guess that was just part of, and that's who I still am. I feel like I'm still responsible for these people. I still need to step up and be. In Newfoundland, we have our access to a lot of our consultants, or a lot of our specialist care, like psychiatry and neurology, rheumatology. It's been dire for a while, So a lot of family doctors have stepped up, and we've been forced to work beyond usual level. And so, the referrals that go out, they're the ones that really need to go out, when we manage a lot of stuff. But I really felt like I had to push myself to learn these extra skills, because it had to be me, or there was no one else.
Yeah.
For my patients. So all of that to say, when you feel the responsibility for 1,000 people, you learn to put yourself last. And I'm also a mom, and so the patients had to get taken care of. My assistant had to get taken care of. My kids had to get taken care of, and I'm somewhere on the bottom because I'm the easiest one to forget. And that part has not been hurt.
Yeah.
And so that's why, when we started having, we talked about, where did this come from? Recognizing I need to take care of myself. I'm over 50 now, and I need to take care of myself if I want to keep doing this. And I still love this, so I need to keep.
Mm. What were you noticing was the cost of the putting yourself last? Like what sort of was coming up for you that made you realize, okay, I don't know how I'm going to change this, but it definitely needs to change.
A couple of things, I guess. I turned 50 in 2021. So I went through, I mentioned ADHD. So I was diagnosed with ADHD a decade ago with my son. And then, um, so I've always been someone who had a lot of things going on, and um, I could force myself to sit down and do some really good work, but it might look messy to the outside person getting there. But when I started to go through some perimenopausal symptoms and sleep disruption and the typical things that 50-year-old women go through, um, I found my mental function um, really adversely affected in a significant way. So much so that I kept wondering, how am I going to do this? So even when I'd had a good night's sleep, even when I wasn't feeling burnt out particularly, because I've been there before where I pushed myself too hard and burnt out. Um, so even when things were going well, I still felt like my brain is not working very well, and I was trying to figure out, is it pandemic and all the stuff? Is it that, 5 years ago, my practice converted to electronic medical record from paper, and I'm still an 80s girl, and I still vastly prefer to write things down on paper? Was it the pandemic? Is it the working from home? But I noticed a big change in my mental function, and in addition to like all the extra clinical demands, all of a sudden there was this surge in mental health, and we knew that would happen, mental health demand, which I'm good at. So, I think I kept up on that as much as I could. The ADHD lid blew off, and I think a lot of people. Um, I've heard people say that there's an overdiagnosis. I don't think there is. I think there's a lot of people who, when the situation changed and they had to work from home with their kids in the background, they realized they couldn't do it. And I think social media really pushed people to understand they had ADHD or ADHD traits or
Yeah.
situational ADHD, but real, totally real stuff. So that was a huge demand. And then um, just trying to figure out how the insurance companies, we won't get in, I won't get into anything negative because you know that I can complain and swear about this stuff, but the administrative burden that's come from third parties to
Yeah.
us is killing family medicine. I've said that many times before. And um, all the extra stuff, it just seemed like it stepped up. And I'm not sure why, if that just happened. It's been creeping up over the last 5 years, maybe decade. I used to spend a half day a week and be able to keep on top of my all my charting and my third party stuff. And now I have to take an extra day. So I'm spending at least 2 days a week. I work 6 days instead of 5 now. And I spend at least 2 days trying to catch up on all the paperwork. And I know I'm not the only one doing that stuff. And so just mentally feeling like I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this. And that's really frustrating because it's a job I love, but
Yeah.
it's also a job that's very mentally, cognitively demanding. And so that's a real scary thing for me to think, what if I can't keep up anymore? I know I'm still smart. I know I still understand medicine. I know I have a wisdom that comes with being around for a long time, but that's not translating into me working any less hard. I'm working more hours, and it's more of a struggle. I'm like grinding way too many tabs open is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then I guess for me physically as well, the going to a lot of virtual care, spending a lot of time sitting on a telephone or in front of a computer, I definitely noticed a change in my health. I gained weight. Um, and I'm definitely not as healthy. And so trying to get out and take care of myself again from a physical point of view. Um, but then, what do you prioritize? How do you prioritize it all again? Right. So I recognize I really need to take care of myself emotionally, and to make space for the cognitive healing, and then also for my body. So I think I just really recognized, and my assistant said to me one day, how much long, like, do you think you're going to be able to do this for a long time? That was scary. She knows me well. And she said, I do wonder sometimes if you're going to be able to keep doing this. And it would be a real shame if you can't.
Mm. Mhm. What did that feel like to hear?
It was scary. I think scary because she was voicing something that I was already sensing myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so to hear it from someone else voicing exactly what I was afraid of, it's like hearing your worst fears. Um, and then I was also feeling like let her down. I was going to let other people down. So again, it was back to feeling responsible for everybody else. Even though she was saying, I'm worried about you and your health, I immediately flipped it back to, yeah. And if I can't do it, what about all these people that I'm responsible for? Because we have this situation in the province, and I know Canada's like it all over, where if I retire, if I go off, if I change, there's no one to take my place. There's no one to pick up my patients. A third of the province right now, or a quarter of the province right now, doesn't have a family doctor. So, and there's no one coming behind to
Yeah.
pick them up. So I have a I have a group of complex health and chronic pain and just nature of how I take care. I have a lot of people with complex issues, and I know that a lot of people don't want those complex, I don't, folks. So I do feel very responsible that I've kind of crafted this practice, which I find very enjoyable. And I know that my people really like me and value me and love me and cherish, and cherish is a big word, but I know that they really value me and the way that I do medicine. But if something happens to me, I think it's gonna be really hard for someone else to come in and pick up the way that I do it. Maybe not, but some of that has to do with the politics and our payment system and our compensation model,
Mm.
and so I'm also involved in a lot of the provincial chapters that are working to modify and change, uh, to advocate for family medicine on behalf of ourselves and the province and the people. Um, and so I'm also involved in the political side of making family practice, keeping us alive, making it better. Um, so I feel a lot of responsibility in that way too, to make sure that the next generation coming through feels like they still have a place, and that I would just really hate to see family medicine die.
Yeah.
The way that I was trained, and definitely the way that you were trained. You're a bit younger than me, but we were this, I think, the start of you're more than just your body. There's also the psychosocial and the spiritual aspects. So my class, graduating class, we were just starting to get that. And I know that became a big part of the triple C competencies in family medicine. And so that or not the, the sorry, the components of family doctor.
Or like can meds.
Ken, thank you.
Mhm.
So like I know that really came in when with
Yeah.
your graduating group. Um, and I think it's awesome, amazing, but it's becoming increasingly unreachable for a
Yeah.
lot of us just because of the demand. Just,
Totally. So I just like hear so much that I imagine will be relatable to so many people about just even the different domains of responsibility, feeling responsible for patients, feeling responsible for your MOA who's also concerned about you, feeling responsible just for the whole system for family medicine, right? And those are, and also increasing recognition in the center of like, even if I was only thinking I was responsible in one of these domains, it does not appear to be sustainable because my brain appears to want to work at a different speed than it used to. My body is letting me know I need to make some changes. And so that's such a common dilemma, Definitely it came up a bunch in the group, and so not that you have the ultimate solution of all time because I don't. Like we
no,
are working through that tension, that question together. But, in the past year or so, and I guess in particular over the time when we were in that group together, I would love to know like what's come to you so far. What are some of your learnings so far about how you weave this? How do you hold this responsibility, or what do you do with this sense of responsibility while knowing it's impossible?
Well, so I think when I first met you was July of last year when you were a guest for one of the understory courses. So, group um, of physicians, women physicians who were doing, what would you call them? Self-discovery, medical
Yeah.
discovery. It was professional discovery. I
Wellness,
mean,
but beyond wellness. Yeah.
yeah. So, burnout prevention, but it was really a discovery. And, I started off with the first course from Kelly and Meg, and just kept going. And I have kept going because I realized I don't need, not that I don't need to learn any more diabetes. I really probably do, but I'm saturated with that
Yeah.
right now, and I need to learn me. And so, I've done a bunch of their courses over about a year, and then we had your course, which was um, the getting in touch with the body, and breathing, and I thought it was going to be another, a meditation, and um, a mindfulness type course, which are great. But when, within the first couple of weeks of seeing your writing and listening to your messages before they became podcasts, um, I realized, okay, this was different. You wanted me to feel my body as a thing. You wanted me to experience my body. You wanted me to dance. You wanted me to feel what I felt like in the shower, in the pond. I was supposed to experience something in a different way, and I'd never felt that before. So, I found it really difficult because it was still busy, and so to give myself time to rest. I remember one of the first sessions that we did, and it was music on, and I was just supposed to rest, not fall asleep, but just lie down and rest. And how did we feel afterwards? It was like, well, after I woke up, um, and some of the times I was awake, but that was a huge shift to go. Yeah, this is not just about burnout prevention and trying to find the right psychological place to be. This was a recognizing something different. And then your podcast about the other human in the room came out. And I remember the first time that you said that, and first time I looked at it and went, the other human. Oh, that's me. Oh, I'm the other human. And honestly, I think I probably heard the phrase a few times before I realized that you were talking, before I actually realized that you were pointing to me as a human being.
Yeah.
And it was just this revelation of, well, I haven't recognized this because in the 90s in medical school, you just went through as an automaton and you worked 100-hour shifts, and you worked, 100-hour weeks, 36-hour call. You just did it. You kept going. You didn't pee. You didn't eat. You just did what you had to do. And if
Mhm.
you didn't, you were weak. And then after my graduating group finished, I think the residency unions started to get much stronger about um, protecting trainees, which was fantastic. And I fear that it was after some illnesses and suicides on behalf of
Yeah.
some folks, I suspect, that things really got pushed to change. But I didn't grow up in that. I grew up in you were doing 1 and 3 call, and if someone got sick, you did 1 and 2 call in house for 6 weeks or 2 months, if that was what it was, and you just did it because someone had to do it. So the idea of, well, you just have to work harder, you just have to work extra, you just have to keep going. But there's no end in sight. Like there's no peak season and then you get to relax. I don't, I can't think of the last time that I said that someone went, oh, you don't have anyone looking to talk to you today. There's no,
No.
there's no requests. There's no one on the cancellation list. Like that hasn't happened to me in 7 or 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So to recognize myself, as a human, was scary because I know humans are fallible, right? Humans are, they have limitations, and we were taught you don't have limitations.
Mm.
We work in a system where we're expected to not have limitations.
Mhm.
We are supposed to have endless capacity
Yeah.
until we die or stroke.
True.
or get pregnant when then you got a little bit of reprieve, to go on your holiday to have your baby. But but then heaven forbid you need to actually have some parenting responsibilities when you return to work, and then you have to cancel clinic periodically because your kid is sick. So like that's the system that we trained in, and I'm the generation that drank that up, and so for me to switch to I'm allowed to be a human too. We talked about this. Um, you cancel clinic when there was a death in the family, but not when someone was dying.
Mhm.
Like I remember being at my mother-in-law's, um, being at the hospital with family when she was dying, and uh, someone had called and looked for me, and my assistant had said, she's at the hospital, her mother-in-law is dying. And it was a small community, so people knew that. And they said, well, can you just ask her one thing? And my assistant had said, she's at her bedside. Her mother-in-law is dying,
Yeah.
but she wanted a refill on something and she just wouldn't let it go, this person. And because somehow I was supposed to, and I mean, we talked in our group, we've talked in a few groups about how many of us as women have had miscarriages in clinic and then just went on and saw the next patient who may have been pregnant. And we were, or we'd gotten bad news on the phone from a family member, but we had to finish clinic because people had already waited an hour. So, I mean, a lot of us have done that stuff of putting our anything where anyone else would go, oh yeah, just go home, just take off. Short of someone actually dying, when someone dies, you're allowed to leave. But short of that, we're just supposed to push through. So, so I guess, starting off with you and trying to get in touch with um, how does my body feel, but and from a healthy perspective instead of just looking at it from a sleeping calorie, you know, carb or no carb or keto or from a diet perspective, but from a who am I perspective, it's just a huge shift for me. And then listening to your podcasts and then starting in with the group, and the group was fantastic because you managed to gather a group that was a mixture of age, a mixture of different specialties across the province and across the country. Um, and there were a lot of differences. We were coming from different places in our practice, different traumas, different previous workplace environments, some of them pleasant, some of them not pleasant. Um, we all, I think, as we shared things, we realized we all shared so much of that underlying piece of feeling the responsibility for the world,
Yeah.
being told that we're responsible for the world,
Yeah.
not given the tools to take care of the world, and
Yeah.
and then if we got sick, being asked why the heck didn't we prevent ourselves from getting sick? You're the doctor. How come you didn't fix yourself before this bad thing happened to you?
Mm.
Right. And so all of this stuff, but I think just listening to everybody, I think was so helpful to see, and especially to do it week after week like we did, um, just to see people evolve and share stuff, and we would share things together. And afterwards, I would get messages from people, and I would send messages to encourage and say, I hear you. I'm not, my practice is totally different than yours, but I can definitely see where you are, how this is hurting you, and where to find hope to go forward. So um, just and so the thing that I want to keep doing is I want to keep doing these coaching and I want to keep doing these courses because it's the thing in my medical education that's missing for 20 years is the recognition that I need to take care of myself. I'm just as valuable. So when I have a nurse in the room or a social worker or another doctor, and I'm asking them, so who's taking care of you? Like, how are you doing? Because I've managed to find this fantastic group of women physicians. And I mean, I have some male physician peers who are, I would consider fantastic as well. But there's something special about the group that has come up with just being able to understand that extra little piece of um, responsibility or burden that we carry.
Yeah. Mm. Have you noticed then what has shifted about your relationship to that burden? And I won't believe if you say it's totally gone because I don't know if that is ever going to be totally gone. It's the water we're swimming in, right? But have you
Yeah.
noticed any shifts about it at this point?
So I'm letting myself notice when I'm getting tired. I'm letting myself notice when, and I've said, a few times, and I've said it to patients lately too. How are they, how are you doing? It takes forever to get an appointment, like 6 weeks to get an appointment. It's terrible. I feel horrible about that. My wait list was never like that, but I can't fit people in anymore. My appointments are taking me longer. I think partially because people are complex, partially because my brain's tired. I need a break. I haven't really had a break for quite a while. And so we've decided, what have I done? I've decided I'm going to take some time off, on the locum. So we're just going to take a month. My assistant and I are both just going to shut things down, um, for a month and just try to ignore. So part of me of course, I feel the responsibility of, well, what about the blood tests, the investigations and stuff that are going to come in? And I mean, I'm going to try to, I guess, check in periodically, make sure I'm not missing anything um, terrible.
Mhm.
To try to keep on top of some of the, obviously some of the really crucial things, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that has to sit. If I don't rest my brain soon, it's not going to work. Like, I'm not working as good. I think I'm still smart. I think I'm still safe with my patients one-on-one now, but it's taking me longer to do things. Um, and that just makes me less effective and people have less access to me. And so if I want to keep doing this, I have to slow.
Mm.
So letting myself even recognize, um, you know, when it like how long's it been since I went to the bathroom? Well, how long's it been since I had something to drink? How long's it been since I had something to eat? In the run of a clinic. And I'm telling patients, yeah, we're cutting down. We're just taking a personal break for a month, and yeah, we're burnt out. Both of us are. I am, and my assistant is. We
Yeah.
both just need a break, so that we can come back and not just so we can come back and be good doctors and provide good medicine. That, yes, that's part of it. But I want to be human again. Like, I want to enjoy my family, and I feel like everybody around me who loves me has lost a piece of me. I'm not able to be social as much anymore. Spend a lot of time. I haven't spent much time with my friends in the last couple of years. Part of it was pandemic, but then after the pandemic, I never went back to some of those things because I just don't have capacity. I'm peopled out at the end of the day. I'm
Yeah.
not spending as much time with my family. They're getting older. Who knows what's going to happen around people's lives, right? And so I realize I'm missing out on life. Um, and I deserve to have life too.
Yeah.
I deserve that the same way that I would say that to any of my patients. Right? I've encouraged them to make sure that they have a balance of whatever they need. And I don't like, and I don't like the word balance, because I think balance is a fallacy. Like, it's an unachievable thing.
Yeah.
I think we prioritize what's important to us at any given point in time. But I've been putting my priorities outside of myself and outside of my my body, my family, my home. I spent a lot of time in the last year tidying my home, organizing some things, trying to make it cozy. My emphasis for a while was on the word cozy. I just
Mm.
really felt like that had gotten pushed to the back burner, and I just wanted to nest in again. And yeah, lately I've been trying to focus on my family, my partner, um, and making sure I'm taking care of those things because those are the things that really matter. Those are the things that make me me. Um, and I want to keep me. I don't want to lose me.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so beautiful. And um, the thing I'll say about when you take your leave, I think it's sort of this iterative process that I've seen both personally and with coaching is, sometimes we start with something smaller. So it's like, okay, I'm still not going to take a big break, but I am going to give myself little breaks. So, can kind of start there, like little things. And also there's something magic that does happen when you take the big break. It's not like then you're cured or something, but especially if you take just at least long enough of a break that you really can start to recognize that the world does go on without you. And it's
Yeah.
not that you won't be missed. It's not that your service isn't. valued, but it's not holding up the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of us really feel like that's what the burden feels like, is like, I can't move an inch because I am holding up this whole house of cards here, people, you know, that, and that is liberating.
I know somewhere in the last few years, I used to keep up on all my blood work and all my, results coming in. Um, Certainly within days, certainly within a week, I had everything right. Now, I'm skimming, making sure the urgent stuff is done. But then there's a lot of stuff that's sitting. There's a lot of cholesterol results that
Yeah.
need to be addressed that are not addressed until 3 months later. If the patient didn't book an appointment, I might not call. I might not see it, and I where I see it and I go, it's not a priority right now. It's going
Yeah.
to be a priority when the person comes in to discuss it with me. But if um, it's not going to get lost. I mean, it's the EMR, so I'm not going to lose anything. But I've just had to go. I can't keep up on. I just can't keep up on some of the preventative health things that I once did. So my assistant, I've kind of gotten her to to do some reports and make sure we are keeping up on the essential things. There's some like the cervical screening, like the PAP testing, is still really important to me, making sure that we keep cancer screening up. But there's some other things that are still important, but I mean, it's all important,
It's
right?
all important. It's not like we're looking at a list and we're like, you know, clean out the dryer. I don't even know. Like it's like
Yeah,
human lives. The whole
yeah,
list is human
yeah.
lives.
There,
So
which is more important? Is the cancer important or is the osteoporosis? I mean, the osteoporosis is incredibly important,
totally.
right?
Yes.
And then my new moms who I think might be vulnerable for depression. I'm going to make sure that either myself or my assistant, we're calling them a month later. We're keeping in touch. That one's important, but then some, but maybe it's not like it is. It's
Yes.
all important. Where do you
Hmm.
not? What like we if it wasn't important, we wouldn't be doing this stuff, right?
Yes.
Um, but I think one of the things that changed for me somewhere in the last couple of years was there was a time when I could push myself to work hard and work long and do all the paperwork, get all the insurance forms done, right after they came in, fairly soon after they came in. Stuff is waiting now. And I feel bad because I know that sometimes people's treatments and things are being held up, but I don't have any extra space or capacity to do it. And so just recognizing my brain is, I started to realize that it's like someone who has, had an broken ankle, and they get back to physio and they get doing things with their ankle, so they can walk a kilometer, they can walk a kilometer this week, and then next week maybe two. But if they do more than that, they're actually going to have to limp home, and it's going to
Yeah.
set them back, right? And
Hmm.
I have to realize that part of the things that I've been dealing with I dealt with like a lot of women deal with it. A lot of women with ADHD, when they hit perimenopause, their brain changes. I still think I'm useful. Like I'm not, you don't need to throw me out yet, but I have to recognize, yeah, I'm a little bit different now. I can't work as hard as I once did for as long as I once did. And so when I'm off for the weekend, I know some of my colleagues tell me if they have, they're checking their lab results while they're on a cruise ship on the EMR. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
If I'm hopeful that the systems that are in place, with the backup things like critical lab values, if they don't catch one of us, people get sent to emerge. Oh my God, I love my emergency colleagues out there who are like who are my safety net um, under me because, I don't have any other safety net. So I'm just hopeful that there's going to be enough systems in place um, to catch anything that might slip through while I'm not there um, but at the end of the day, I know that if I don't take some time, I'm not going to be there as long as I want to be here. And I want to be here for another 20 years. So I want to be here for a long time. Um, but I get scared. I actually, I get scared sometimes. I really had to face, gee, my brain is changing. There's dementia in my family, there's disease and strokes and things. I don't want that to be me just because I didn't take care of myself because I was too busy taking care of the stupid.
Yeah.
My family deserves better. So I deserve it.
Yeah.
So it was you saying that there's another human in the room that made me realize uh, there is, and the responsibility for that human is mine.
Yeah. That's the actual only responsibility. The
Yeah,
rest feels true and is in like an embodied heavy sense. The patients, the staff, the system, even the family, we feel as if they are our responsibility and burden. But like just in terms of what you have control over, it's only you, and not even completely. It's not like you have control over how your brain functions, etc. So it's so it's not easy, but it is clarifying to think about, oh yeah, I really can't do all of this. And having a really kind of ruthless barometer, like, yeah, like the barometer of like, which of these things is worth me possibly having a stroke over or something? It's going to just make it really clear, you know what? Like, maybe nothing's actually worth having a stroke over, but it's like, which of these things gets to the energy I do have today, right? And maybe it's just never forms and maybe that's how we just collectively accidentally go on strike about some of this stuff. Like, I don't know. I just have this sense of like, you know, someone with your passion for family medicine and the care you offer your patients, we certainly want to protect you as the human and as much of this really valuable care as you can offer. And then the rest of it's just gotta burn away.
yeah,
I feel that so strongly. And, you know, because that's gotta be enough. And it is, it's more than enough, you know?
yeah, yeah. Um, I do spend lots of time talking with other family docs and anyone who listen actually just about because it's not just us, it's teachers. All the
Oh
social
yeah.
problems of the world have gotten dumped into classroom, and I see them the same as family docs. Like they are the groundwork of we're the ground level of medicine. They are the ground level of so many other things, right? The
Yes.
the 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 average elementary school, junior high, high school, primary school that's just had to absorb all the social issues, and we just expect, well, teachers are going to teach all these things now, and they're going to have the responsibility to teach uh, gender affirmation awareness, and great, that's fantastic, but that means that something else is going to get pulled off. So which thing is going to get? Is it going to be geography, or maybe geography doesn't need to be taught anymore? Maybe it isn't as important. Who knows, right? But they're not being given any other resources.
Yes.
They're not being given any extra resources either, right?
Hmm.
Um, I know in Newfoundland we've had a whole bunch of Ukrainian students come here, which I think was absolutely the right thing to do. But they have been just thrown into the school system, and teachers are told, figure it out. There's no extra money, there's no translators, there's no extra teachers coming, but figure it out. And they do, right? Because they're like family doctors. They
Yeah.
do. They figure out how to make it work.
Hmm.
But there's going to be a cost, right? For those. And I see some of my friends who are my age, they're in their 50s, then their last 5 years of teaching. And and I never thought that they would ever crumble. They just had that passion for it, and they're coming to me and they're saying, I'm in my last year and I don't know.
Mm.
I think I need a couple months off. And you can just see the devastation. They recognize they need it, but they're devastated that they failed.
Mm.
And it's the same for us, and I have colleagues who've had concussions and who've had, health issues where either their energy or their mental capacity or physical capacity has been diminished in some form, and they have had to cut back on the clinics or had to cut back on, and they just feel like they somehow failed.
Yes.
Instead of, like, if this was one of our patients, we would say, you had to have your gallbladder out. You had to have that knee surgery done. You had that concussion that you didn't ask for.
Yeah.
You're human in a human body who's had these things happen. You didn't fail. You just had real things happen. And our system has no capacity to back you up. No.
Nope.
So you feel like a failure because the system has.
Yes, we are feeling the impacts of a system that has forgotten, maybe never really recognized that even like if we were robots that they might want to keep a backup in a closet, much less that we're human. You know what I mean? It's like the
Yeah,
math of it. The more you
yeah,
think about it, doesn't really add up, does it? Gotta have more of us. We need redundancy here, people. You know?
yeah. And I remember back when I was in when I graduated, a number of provinces, British Columbia for sure, Nova Scotia, I think they actually had some limitations on how many people could graduate family medicine because they had so many that there was a glut of family doctors in British Columbia and Nova Scotia in around years 2000-ish. Um,
Mhm. What a
can you
problem to have.
imagine? It was there were too many family doctors. Um,
I can't actually. What did that look like? Was that true? I'm suspicious. How could that be
so there
true?
were too many. So they felt like there were too many family doctors, and in some of the urban centers, and so there was a bit of a push to. There were limited number of licenses. I know in Nova Scotia because I went to practice there. Um, I was with the military, so I had to go to Halifax because where
Mhm.
my base was. But I think at the time, if I were a civilian just coming to Nova Scotia, I would have had to practice outside of Greater Halifax municipality. And I knew in Vancouver it was the same. You couldn't open up a practice. You couldn't get a billing number if your billing was in Vancouver or Victoria. But if you're going to go up over the Malahat, you're going to go a
Yeah.
little bit outside of town. Um, Whereas now people drive 4 and 5 hours. Like it doesn't matter where your family doctor
Yeah.
is. I have people who drive 5 hours to see me 2 times a
Yes.
year and then phone calls in between,
Yep.
um, because they can't find anybody
You just want
where
somebody.
they are.
I'm just saying I'm suspicious about their math back then, that it was actually too many versus they were like, there's not enough people. Anyway, we don't have to get to it. I'm just like,
Well, it was all these things like we weren't allowed to
suspicious enough.
advertise. You weren't allowed to call patients in for
Hmm.
anything other than pap testing because it would be seen as advertising. So it would be seen as soliciting business. So it would be,
God forbid. What?
God forbid, we brought anybody in to check their blood pressure or to do a preventative health medicine check. Yeah. So other than calling people, and it's in, I know in Newfoundland, it's in our preamble or billing codes that you can't call someone in other than to recheck an issue that has been ongoing, to follow up on a result or vaccinations or, the provincial vaccination program or PEP test. Um, that you're not allowed to just randomly go, I haven't seen Joan in 4 years. I wonder how she is. I'm going to call her.
Yeah.
That would not be an insured visit under our provision.
Because that's just clearly a shady business practice. What? Like, all of those rules, it's like, was there a time where there was really not enough care to do? I am suspicious of that. I know the care menu has increased, like you said, like we have new awareness even of things socially, for example, the gender one that you brought up, but like, and medicine's more complex, but it's like, I don't know, I think there's always been plenty of good care we were
You do.
offering,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be some rando that just wants to make money, I
And see
suppose,
70 people a day. Yeah.
and
And maybe they can. I can't.
good
I'm at
for
the point
them.
now where I'm lucky some days to see 18 people and I'm still I'm still 2 hours behind. Like, how did that happen? But
Yeah,
and I know how it happens. It happens because there's more complexity and
yeah,
because I'm dealing with more complex and I'm dealing with a lot of psychosocial stuff. And I'm also just whatever percentage slower, maybe it's 10% slower. Maybe some days I have to say there's days when I feel like I'm a lot slower than I used to be. But it's not because I'm lazy and it's
mm-mm.
not because I'm not trying to do the right things. Because you feel those things, right? You think, why the hell am I, I feel like the only one who's struggling here because everybody, no one else seems like they're falling behind as far as I am. Other people seem like they're doing okay, but you know, uh, I'm struggling to keep going.
Yeah,
And so I know I need help. So we've added margin into my schedule, added time off into my schedule over the last year. Now we're going to take this block of time, because it used to be that after, if I took 5 days off to do the paperwork and do forms and stuff and not have to deal with patient stuff, one-on-one, at the end of that week period, I'd come back feeling a bit refreshed and ready to see patients. And now I'm some weeks I'm getting some work done. Some weeks I can't even turn on the EMR for a couple of days, right? I'm just can't do it. But I'm coming back now feeling like, when is 3 weeks from now I get another, that's not good.
Mhm.
So, and I know Christmas time we've got kind of a 2 week block where we take a full week around Christmas. We don't check into work at all, and then there's a couple of days where we check and see what happened over Christmas break, but we're not booked for things, so it's a little light. But um, I know that that's not going to be enough to rest
Yeah.
this time. I know I need the longer time. So, and I guess that's one of the hallmarks of burnout, right? When your breaks are not restored.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I felt restored.
Yes. What would it feel like? Why not see if we can reach for that experience for you, Roxanne? I
Yeah.
just think why it it's so socialized out of us to even like remember that it's an option. Just like we forget that we're human. And yet it is like a state of our bodily system that our body quite enjoys and can offer us a lot. So I'm so excited for you doing that. I think that's so great. Um, so as we wrap up, I was wondering, um, I have two final questions. So the first question would be, say someone was curious about joining a similar group to the one you were a part of. What would you say to them? Like how would they know it was a good fit from your perspective to join the group?
Um, I can't see how it would be a negative trial, right? I can't
Yeah.
see any reason why someone, if they're considering it, why they wouldn't, how it wouldn't have some benefit. So I guess what I'm saying is go for it. Because like in the last group that we had, there were, several of us who were quite easy talkers, like myself, who could ramble on at length and had no problem sharing, no problem telling personal things. And then there were some who didn't talk very much. And I remember I said to you around the third session, I feel like I'm talking too much because there's other people not talking. And am I monopolizing things? I know I can talk, but and you had said, no, those people are just naturally quiet. And so it came up in one of our discussions. Um, gosh, some of us feel like we're talking too much. And some of the others were like, no, we're getting stuff. We don't like to talk very much ourselves. So even the people who I think might have been uncomfortable with a lot of the sharing,
Yeah.
they did share, right? They were able to share things that were really important. And some of the breakout rooms that you had, I think that leveled the plane a bit for some people. Um, and I think people were able, I definitely feel like each of us felt comfortable to share as little or as much as we wanted.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a lot of opportunity, and that number that we had, around that, I guess 8 to 12 people each week, depending on the drive. But that was a good number. There was enough that there was never dead space. There was never dead time. Um, Someone always had something that they could offer, um, but not so not so many that people got drowned out.
Hmm.
So I think if anyone is interested in exploring any of this at all and recognizing there is a piece of medicine outside of what you get when you go to registered CME things, that are disease based. And um, moving away from disease based study
Yeah, that's
is,
good.
and getting to, going somewhere where I don't need to pull out I was going to say CPS, but geez, when's the last time anyone used a CPS, right? Um, They don't even make it anymore. Did you know that?
Yeah,
They
I
look.
do know. We actually just moved clinics and we had this stack of them and they stopped at a certain year. And we're like, do you want to keep these? We're like, no, shred them.
Yeah, I think
All out of
last
date.
year, like I think 2022 was the last year that they actually made
Wow.
it, and it was like a foot high bind. I mean, it was 2.5 inches thick, I guess,
Mm.
when I graduated. Now can't even contain all the pharmaceutical information.
That's a good visual. If you're wondering what's happened to medicine,
It truly is, right?
that would
Because
be a
the
good
product
one.
monograph wouldn't have changed. Like the information that would be required to print would be the same,
With the
right?
number of pills, yeah.
But the number of pills have changed.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think anyone who's thinking about this at all, anyone who's listening is thinking about it, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know, I just found it energizing. I found it comforting. Um, I found it, I feel really connected to all the girls that were in our group. Um, care about them. I hope the best for them. I think we got to see pieces of each other's lives, and that was really humanizing, especially for someone like me who works solo. But I think even for people that work in groups, it was just they were able to see a different group outside of the group they see face to face every day, um, and to realize that we all have a shared, let's say a shared humanity, but like a shared purpose. We have a lot of shared moral ideals. We have a lot of philosophies, and of course, lots of differences too. But I think just to see the how much we shared um, made me. It gave me a lot of hope for going forward. If we're all kind of on the same page, I'm not the only one on this page of seeing medicine has to change or it's going to be unsustainable. So if there's a bunch of us pushing this forward to go, we need to take this step by step. And like you've said, one little decision at a time, one interaction at a time, each of those little things at a time. We got this little group that's pushing it forward. And it has to change for the better. If we have good people underneath it pushing forward, it has to change for the better. And I've told you before, my son is 21 and his girlfriend is hoping to get into medical school next year. And
Mm.
she wants to do family medicine. And part of me is like, oh, God, she doesn't know what she's getting into. And part of me thinks she's fantastic, right? She'd be a fantastic family doctor. And I was talking with another friend last week who just applied and has an interview, and she's going to be a fantastic family doctor. But
Yeah.
part of me, my heart breaks for them going, it's not the same as it once was.
Hmm.
But maybe it's going to be better, right?
Yes.
In 6, 7 years' time when they graduate, maybe we're going to have it fixed, but better by then.
Yeah. Let's do our
Um,
part to do
and
that
the
then.
only way that it's going to change is by a group of good, concerted, good people together making a concerted effort to go. It's going to change, and there's no point bitch and complain about it. I've done that for a decade.
Yeah.
The complaining about it doesn't. You don't feel any better. It really doesn't progress things any better. But going, we need to make some changes, and it's going to start with me, piece by piece by piece. And some of that might look like, no, I'm not doing those forms. No, insurance company, I'm not bending to your whim. Figure it out on your own. The taxpayers did not put a lot of money to train me, pay me now to be a pawn for your whatever your thing is. No,
Yes.
not doing it. So that might look a little bit bad at the time, but I'm trying to protect my profession and I'm trying to protect my people, right?
Mm.
So yeah, that's kind of fun too.
Oh yeah.
I'm also old. I hit that over the 50, don't really give a care uh, as much anymore. About if someone doesn't like me, I'm okay with that. I'm
Mm.
really, truly okay.
So freeing,
Yeah,
right?
that's freeing.
Truly. Yes. I actually like you've already touched on it a bit then, but the final question I love to have each like guest answer is like, so picturing the humans in healthcare who are listening. There's physicians, there's nurses, there's midwives, there's naturopaths, there's teachers. Actually, I recently learned that a few teachers listen. So hi, teachers. And so thinking of this group of caring humans, um, what do you want to say to them? What words of support or advice would you like to offer at the end of our conversation here?
Um, that all of us who got into these caring professions, um, 99% of us did this with best interests. We didn't do it for the summers off. We didn't do it for the big money. We didn't do it for, the pension and the glory, because there's easier jobs to get all of those benefits, right? We got into these caring professions because we care about people. And so, and we like other people who care about people.
Mm.
So, so there is, I think, I would say to all of them, well, number one, most of us who got into caring professions also have a little bit of childhood trauma or something back there that we need to work on. If we're not aware of that, then we're going to keep digging ourselves into bad holes. So yeah, work on your stuff. But and I say that to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We've all got our stuff. So I think coaching for me, I've had counselors and psychologists for decades now, since I started medicine. Really, I picked it up early and decided it was a good thing for me to do. And in the past 4 years, I would say different physician coaching things have taken the place of that counseling, that psychology that I had been doing, and in some ways doing it better, for me right now, at least. So in helping me, I understand myself, right, and understand the the, the ways and the flaws that got me here, and the things that keep me doing negative things. So I think for everybody just being aware of their own cycles, their own traps, and knowing that it's okay to ask for help, and really understanding that it's the asking for help with each other together, helping each other on this very human, very basic level, just recognizing we're all trying to do, whether you're a social worker or a teacher or a nurse, we're all trying to do a job, um, that was once humane,
Yeah.
but now has become inhumane.
Yeah.
So these admirable professions that people went into once upon a time in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, but it's just becoming inhumane. So the only way that we're going to protect our humanity is by paying attention to it, by working on it, and by protecting it together. I think the together part, I'm really seeing that together part, um, is it's such an important piece, because otherwise you feel like you're alone out there. It's hard to feel human when you're the only person. But when you see another human, when I look at you and I know the work that you're doing, that just gives me hope. Keep going. I can keep it. Jonah's going to keep doing it. I can keep doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And we've got some of these friends, and I just know they're powering through on, even on the rough days, they got to smile. Even on the days when they don't want to smile, they are not having a smile if they don't want to smile, actually.
Yeah.
But then they still, find a way to rise above,
Mm.
and maybe go home and cry into their pillow, or maybe go home and go for a walk, or maybe go home, pet the dog, or do some yoga or dance or whatever. But we're all just finding our ways through. But I think that part of the humanity is admitting that we need each other.
Mm-hmm. The other humans in the other rooms, or you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah,
That component's so important.
and even to the patient, be able to go. There's an article in Medical Post that I about the unspoken contract that we all got
Yes.
into in medicine, right? That we were supposed to be all knowing and all fixing and all able. Geez, that changed.
Yeah.
And
And
in
was
return,
never
we were going to
true,
get great
actually.
money and great respect. But geez, all that changed, didn't it? But
Yep.
somehow people still, there's still this pedestal, and there's still an expectation. But yet there's not. It's a real mix, hey, of things. But just, kind of acknowledging um, that there's an unspoken thing too about teachers. Teachers have to be a certain thing. Nurses are supposed to be a certain thing. And if a patient walks out of the emergency and they say that nurse was not good, according to the patient's perspective, that somehow that nurse failed. But they didn't fail.
Mhm.
They were doing their very best at that time with whatever they had. Um, Maybe in another day they might have been a little bit different. Who knows? Or maybe that what they did was absolutely exactly perfectly on, par. Um, yeah, I think recognizing that, even with, like I say, even with the patient in the room to go, I'm a human too.
Mhm.
And I was definitely trained in it. You don't share stuff with patients, keep very tight personal boundaries. I'm no good for that.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I have some boundaries, but my patients all know about my divorce and my kids and, different things. And if I have a woman in the room with a miscarriage, I had a miscarriage once upon a time. Like stuff happens. We share, stories about our families, and I think that's part of our humanity. As long as we do it in a way that doesn't rob the patient of their time, right?
Yes.
But in it, and so the same peer to peer. But
Mm.
just go. I don't know exactly what you're going through as a family doc in Toronto or in Ontario, but I'm a family doc in Newfoundland, and this is what I've got going, and
Yeah.
at least some of our stories in common. I don't know what you're doing as a nurse in Kelowna. I don't know what you're doing as a social worker in Saint Jean, but some of what we're doing is the same stuff,
Yeah.
and we just got to keep supporting each other and pushing through together.
Mm, I love that. Well, on that, thank you so much, Roxanne. Staying up late, especially with the time change. So I hope you now can turn off your brain and have some good sleep. And yeah, for anyone listening, I hope that hearing the Roxanne's story has inspired you, especially to reach out and to remember that you're connected and very not alone as the other human in the room. And with that, we'll sign off and talk to you next week.
Thank you, Joan.